Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at It's Jessino. On today's episode, I have Clive from the Arsenal Vision podcast, and we're going to be talking all about the difference between Arteta's tactics before December and after December. What's changed? How have we been able to create more chances and have more fluidity in attack? All those types of things. And we'll do a little bit of scouting as well, and talk about how this team is going to evolve in the future. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, guys, like I said, I have Clive from the Arsenal Vision podcast on the show with me today. You guys know him, you love him, and I'm just happy to have him on the show today. Clive, how are you? How are you doing today?
I'm fine. Looking forward to having a chat, talking good football, right? And getting to know your viewers. I don't really know them so well. I don't know if they even know me, but we'll soon find out.
I'm pretty sure they do. A lot of the people that watch my show or do the Arsenal Vision thing as well. So I'm sure they know about you, but let's just go ahead and get to the football. So, I've listened to you talk a lot on Arsenal Vision about how we've evolved from last season to this season. And one of the biggest transformations for me have been going from a back three to a back four, and we've had a good defense this entire season, but I think it's interesting that we've been able to move from a back three to a back four and keep that solidity. For you, when you saw the back three and how we were playing that with Maitland-Niles kind of being like, what do they call it? Like a flexible type of player, a hybrid type of player, what worked for you in that system and what didn't work? And why do you think Arteta kind of switched away from that system at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, so when Arteta came in and he started to play this, well, actually, the first thing he did is he went to a 4-2-3-1. First thing he did. And I often find in life when people show you themselves, they're telling you who they are and the first thing they do, right? So, and then he moved away from it quite quickly because I think he highlighted a few of our weaknesses in certain areas and partnerships. And he went to the back three, but he went to the back three so cleverly with using either Saka or Maitland-Niles as almost like a midfielder stroke wing back. So it's the 5 channels at the back, 5 channels up front, how we move the ball through the pitch. Lovely. It's beautiful to watch when it works, right? Very easy on the eye. Lots of pattern play, moving up the pitch very nicely, hitting those 5 channels hard, and then dropping back into 5 channels when we needed to. So he looked good. And then we won the FA Cup, we all went off into the summer, and then we come back and we tried to do it again. And I actually said to a few of the people that listened to me, I said, the thing is now we're quite good and people are going to start to plan for us, right? So what did they do? Some teams said, we're not falling for your build-up stuff. We're just going to stand here in the middle of the pitch and block off the centre in the mid-low block and now see what you can do. So Villa did it to us a couple of times. Leicester did it to us a couple of times. And in football, how you solve problems is really, really key. So although I love the system, I still love the system at 3 at the back. I do feel that we got to a point where we were quite good at it and teams started to block off our progression and said to us, actually, you have to beat us at a low block. And we're not so good at that. Right? We need people to come and fight us and then we'll go past you. But if you're not going to fight us, Leicester didn't play a striker. Remember that one? Leicester at home? They didn't even play a striker until the last 20 minutes and won the game. That was a sign that we are quite good at something, but didn't have the plan B in our back pocket.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, we'll talk a little bit about that Leicester game because you've referenced it quite a bit. And I looked at that game too and thought this is a really telling game. So we'll talk about that when we talk about the midfield partnership moving forward with Thomas and Xhaka. But, when I was kind of doing some research before we did this podcast, I was looking at, the lineups and the formations in kind of like that strange run of 7 to 8 games where we didn't really win a game. And there was kind of like a lack of consistency in formations and players and things like that. And, we saw things like Willian at false 9, Lacazette at the 10, Willock at 10, just a bunch of different things that it looks like Arteta was trying. Do you think that, the lack of consistency contributed to the bad results? And was Arteta just trying to be too clever or trying to work things out? It was a really strange period for us.
I think we attacked in wide areas, didn't we? We didn't really, particularly down the left. And so there were teams, I mean, Spurs did it to us. They played Aurier, Sanchez in that corner. I think they played Sissoko at right midfield. Again, when we played them, they're telling us about us. They're telling us, we know you're good at this. Let's see if you can do something else. And we didn't really have anything else. We were left-sided bias. We had Saka, we had Tierney, we had Aubameyang, and they were carrying us, right? We enjoyed it when it worked, didn't we? We enjoyed it when it worked. When it didn't work, we started to worry. And he was looking for centrality. I can say this now, particularly after West Ham, but at the time I was a bit more confused. But he was looking for centrality, right? And he tried Willian in the hole, didn't he? He tried him there for a little while. He tried Lacazette in there. And what he was really saying to us, we can't just be a left-sided team. We need to have something else. We need to be able to create in a different way. And it was only when we found Smith Rowe in that number 10. And then actually, it wasn't just that. It was actually moving Saka away from Tierney. So what we found in one little move of introducing one player and moving one player to the other flank, what you suddenly got was you still got your left side. Now you've got your centre, and now you've got your right. And from that moment on, I think our season has changed, right? So we are not so easy to read. Teams, they really have to plan for us.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just having different ways to attack teams, like you said, being so left-sided bias, it made it really easy for them to stop us. Now that we have a little bit more about us, it's harder, to defend. So let's talk a little bit about the midfield partnership. I want to spend some time on this because it's such a big topic of conversation. I, like you, am a very big Thomas Partey fan and feel like he still has a lot to give. He really isn't even at 100%, but just having him in the side, having him on the field makes this a completely different question to answer for the opposition, and let's talk about that Leicester game, because I just remember watching that game and thinking, wow, like, are they going to pass it to Thomas or not? And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about the first Leicester game where they beat us 1-0. Vardy came in and scored that goal. Xhaka was doing a lot of the orchestrating. He was definitely, like, as you call it, like the guy with the keys to the car in that game. And Thomas really wasn't getting the ball. Fast forward to the game against West Ham, the game against, mostly the game against West Ham, where the second half, where Thomas was doing the orchestrating. He was the guy with the keys to the car. He had 19 passes to Odegaard, and he was the difference maker for me. What is the future of this partnership when you look at the fact that it might be Thomas that needs to have the keys to the car, and Xhaka's not really the type of player that could fall back? He has a dominant personality. He likes to be the guy on the ball. Does that partnership needs to change? Is there a different type of partner that, we need to think about? What do you think?
Let's talk about them first, right? So I quite like how Xhaka's adapted to the fact that Partey's there. And what they do quite nicely, they don't stand square. They stand on a slanted angle, right? So they're confident passing to each other. And I think Xhaka passes to Partey quite a lot now. I think he's realised that basically he's quite good. So I better give him the ball. He can play the passes I can't play. And so Xhaka's very clever the way he's adapted his game to play with Partey. So I quite like how they play. They're quite smart. They don't play square. Less square passes, more forward passes. Even if they're 5-yard passes, they're on the angle. Love it. Love what they're doing. But there's a predictability about Xhaka's game, and it's a solid game. We don't play without him, right? So it's a solid game, but there's a predictability about his passing. There's no disguise in his passes, and he's somebody that works quite hard to receive the ball the way he wants it, and then we can all see, sitting in our settees, exactly where that ball's going, right? And he does it at pace. He does it quite well. And so, but anytime there's pressure on the ball, anytime it takes a while to get onto his left foot, we all know what can happen. He has to buy a foul, or he can get pressed off the ball, and then his recovery speed isn't great. So, as a two, I don't mind them. I think looking forward, we need to realise that, well, let's go back to that Leicester game. That Leicester game, Xhaka had double the passes Partey did on that day. I can remember podcasting about it thinking, oh, wow, we got a problem here potentially, because I don't want Partey having half the touches of Xhaka. We want to be a bit more equal, a bit more equilibrium there. So I think the West Ham game, I said it, that I felt this was a moment, I may have just have been game state, but I felt it was a moment when the keys were handed over, and it just, you could see it developing in that game. It was getting faster, getting more intense, the ball was moving quickly, and there was just a moment there I felt Xhaka couldn't quite do it. Now, I tried to explain it away by the fact he was a bit tired, he plays every minute of every game, but he didn't have the dexterity to drop the ball into a mid-low block. He just didn't have it. He didn't have the disguise. They were crowding the area nicely, so you need to move people to create the lanes. He didn't have it. All he could do was recycle it, and that's why he got substituted. And he never gets substituted. Smith Rowe comes on, doesn't do much more, but he just has got more dexterity in his feet to move the ball at different angles, create wall passes at a faster rate. That's not to denigrate Xhaka completely, but I always tend to, when I always analyze the horizon tomorrow. So there's lots of people that are really smart to let you know what just happened. So I try to look at something and say, okay, this is what's happening, and tomorrow we need to look at this. And the horizon became really clear for me in that game, that the quicker we speed up, the quicker we move the ball, the more redundant Xhaka's going to be. And I've seen comps out there, Xhaka moving the ball off one touch. Well, yeah, fair play for your 2 meter comp to be there 5 years, right? We all know that's not a normal, consistent action. And I just feel, again, I quite like the player. It's a very important player for us. But if you're looking to us to evolve, we need a little bit more speed of movement of the ball. And I think that's really, really important.
So, yeah, So, yes, 100%. I agree with Xhaka. He's doing good right now. But if we're looking towards the future, probably need something a little different. For me, the conversation kind of becomes, are we trying to unlock Thomas Partey, or do we need to bring in a more progressive 8 type of player and have Partey sit? I think you don't spend $45 million on a release clause for Thomas Partey to make him sit as a DM in the system. So for you as the partner for Partey, or the next midfielder after having Odegaard, more of a progressive 8, somebody like an Aouar, or is it more of a Basuma? Or do we not know yet?
For me, so it's more of a Basuma. It's more somebody that can take the ball off the back four, but also protect the back four. So you want someone who can take it on the half turn, but also sprint and cover the gap. So cover fullbacks either side, but also make sure that you're close. For when Partey, you want him to engage. He presses forward, he goes to engage the play. But if he misses his tackle, you don't want to feel as though the world's going to end behind you. You want someone there who can actually catch that person. You often feel once you get past Partey, you're now running at a Ceballos or a Xhaka. If Xhaka's not positioned correctly, or an El Neni, you know what's happening. Centre halves is the next place that team's going to stop, right? And so if you're looking to upgrade, you always think about the attributes of a player. So you would call, there's lots of different coaching manuals that tell you what the attributes of a player is, right? So, for example, somebody like Thomas Partey, I would call him almost a defensive central progressor of the ball, right? So that's how you categorize him. And then you need someone next to him who's a defensive block player, basically, who wants to sit and not do the progression play, right? So, and I think for me, an Aouar, a nice player, looks very similar to Smith Rowe, really. That's what we're talking about now, aren't we? If you look at Aouar comps, he plays on the left a lot. Smith Rowe's developing into a mini Aouar. So why would you buy a player on top of him that completely nullifies him, central and 10? He can do that. We know that. And I think Smith Rowe potential, I look at midfield from a behind the ball and ahead of the ball. If you look at his body shape and where he might develop into, I wonder if he will develop into a deeper player slightly, rather than a player on the last line. So you want him to develop his skill set It is intelligence on arrival rather than already being there, right? Now, someone like Saka, he can be there because once he's there, he can still leave you from a standing start with his speed. Smith Rowe is somebody who can actually pick your pocket. And so I think he may come from a slightly more creative, deeper role. I call it almost like an 8.5 in my own little world. I make up stuff. I get 8.5. But when I say that, you know what I mean. He's not quite a 10. He's not quite an 11. He's an 8.5. And give him that attacking responsibility. So he'd be a third man in the 3-man midfield, or be a creator off the side on the left-hand side, right? So Anwar kills that. So Basuma for me all day. And the reason why, 2-footed, sprinter, unbelievable in the challenge, but fungible. He can play with a party. He can play with a Shaka. He could play with a young kid like Aziz. And he can play with anybody because I think he absolutely knows his role. He knows what he is. There's none of this, I'm not sure if he's an 8 or a 10, or I'm not sure if it's like, nah, you are the man at the base of the midfield, and good luck trying to get past him.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's important to get Basuma before we look to get maybe a different type of midfielder that's more progressive if we didn't want to play Smith Rowe there, because we don't have any other athletic sort of midfielders to rely on if something does happen to Thomas. I love El Neni, but his level, it just drops too much. If Thomas is not there, we're talking about pretty much sitting 10 yards back than we are now. I think that Thomas has been important for us to move, up the pitch too.
Yeah, he engages people, doesn't he? He engages people, and you got to go and get people. You often heard me use the term, don't stand outside the garden, stand in the tulips, stand in the battle, stand in there, go and get people, take it off them. And the best way to beat teams is on the transition, when they're the least organised, when they're expanding the pitch. They think they've got the ball safely. So you teach people to sort of go and get it, surprise them, steal it, and then transition on them. And as they're trying to contract the pitch, that's where we move quickly into zones where we're going to attack. It becomes a race to get through the spaces that are left for us. You don't create those transitions with people that stand deep on our back line, right? Waiting for the next event to happen. You create transitions by getting to people, engaging people, intercepting, reading the play, having the dexterity and the speed to get to that position quickly. And that's what Partey's got. That's what Basuma's got. And a lot of our players have got that. Some of the younger players, but I think we need a little bit more, a 23, 24-year-old to say, bang, I'm here. Shaka, give me your shirt.
I love it. I love it. If you guys are loving what Clive is saying, I'm pretty sure by the comments that I'm looking at, you do like and subscribe to the channel. I mean, this is good stuff, you guys. I'm glad you guys are here. There's about 50 of you guys watching, so make sure that you like the video. So let's talk a little bit about the 10 position, because it's just so interesting watching the difference between how we played before we introduced a 10 and now after. Even our form has went up, and I can't separate the two. I think our form has really changed. We're like a top 6 team with having Odegaard and Smith Rowe involved in our team versus, not before. What's the difference for you and how they play the 10 position? I think that's something that we can't quite put our finger on because, maybe we're not tacticians or coaches, but can you just explain it to us a little bit, the difference between Odegaard and Smith Rowe and how they play that position?
Okay, so Smith Rowe played it. I think when he played it initially, he sort of, what Arsenal do when they attack, they create wide diamonds and wide triangles. That's what they do. And they use collectivity in those spaces, right? So lots of teams do it. You try to create superiorities in wide areas. You build up, you suck people on, you get them into wide areas, and you try to get to that space quicker than they do with more people than they have. It sounds very basic, but once you get good movement, good passing movement, take people away, commit them, suddenly it's 3-on-2, 4-on-3, whatever it is, and you're in. You're into the areas you want to be. And so Smith Rowe is very good at moving across the pitch metronomically, side to side, creating those triangles and diamonds in wide areas. Primarily from, I wouldn't say primarily from either side actually, but I think he didn't really focus on centrality. he focused on the wide areas, right? So he grew up as a winger. I watched him as a youth player. He was always a number 7 to me. His body's changed slightly. He became a 10. He's got the intelligence to play anywhere. And I do like him on the interior of the team because I think he's so brainy. He's so smart. So the Odegaard now is a similar player, but I think he not only connects primarily from the right, he connects from the centre. And the way he does it, Smith Rowe does it in one touches. He's like a wall pass. He bangs the ball off, round the corner first time, bang, bang, bang. Then he goes third man runs into space that's created. So what I like about Smith Rowe is he does exactly what the team needs in that particular moment, whether it's a run to come deep, whether it's a run to go long. That's not many players can do that, can do both, do the short stuff, but also take on a 30-yard sprint. So that's a plus for him. Odegaard now is almost like a conductor. He's all about creating the play. And the West Ham game really shook me to my bones how good that was, because we've all watched Arsenal and we all fear when teams sit off us because we haven't got an idea how to break them open. We just haven't. And not that I've seen for a long time now. We haven't got that aerial presence. So when teams go into their box, we just don't know what to do, right? So, and what Odegaard and Partey did was just kill them with disguise and movement and receiving on happy to receive it under pressure, take 2 men out, and then straight away the superiorities are with us. Now we've got runners. So what Odegaard does is very carefully, he manipulates people, moves them around, wants the ball in traffic, holds it in traffic, eliminates people, and then gets it back and keeps doing it and doing it and doing it. And what that does is, to a player who's your opposition, that discourages you and you become passive. You stand off. I don't want to get embarrassed by him again. He's going to turn me. He's going to flick it around me. I've had enough of this. I'll drop off here. And then they don't engage. And now he's in charge. He then receives it and he runs at people. They come meet him. He drops it off to one of our attackers. And so the way he conducted that game, honestly, I've watched it. I've watched it. I think I watched it 20 times now. I'm serious. You may laugh at me, but
I'm laughing because I have to.
Yeah,
I have to.
Because there are games that come along that you can actually learn a lot from. Yeah, and that game to me told us all about our issues and told us all about where we're going. And I said one of the things we do, our headlines. We do our instant reaction, and my headline was, that game showed us who we are and who we could be. And that was my headline. And who we could be just left off the screen to me. And I just thought, wow, that is something sustainable, because now you can travel through the pitch on both sides and central. We can beat a low block. We already know our ball progression is our key skill. So if you want to press us, we're not bad at that. I know we've made a few errors, but we know what we're doing now. We need to sharpen up. So now we've got a game that's a bit more rounded, and I found that incredibly exciting. I know it's dependent on the player we don't even own, and he could be gone in 2 months, but hey, I'm just going to enjoy it for now.
That's so funny because, you're saying that you've watched, that over and over. I do that as well, especially for games that I feel like show me something that I haven't seen before. I actually went back and watched the Manchester City game again because you talked about it, because I couldn't, when we watched it, I was very disappointed, obviously, because I didn't think that we looked good. But then when I went back and I was like, we weren't as bad. Clive was right about that. We weren't that bad in that game, and there was some good to take from it. But it's nice to go back and watch without the emotion, so you can just see it for what it is. And the West Ham game I thought the Wolves first half was the best that we played, but I think this blew it out of the park.
Massively.
For sure. It was very interesting.
Yeah, so the Wolves game was quite nice, and it felt emotionally quite good, and I think emotionally quite bad. Obviously, what happened at the end of the half, when me and Elliot rewatched it, it actually wasn't that great. It was okay, but we missed chances badly. Now, a game that surprised me that was really good was Aston Villa. I know we lost the game, but we were excellent second half. And we killed them. We were excellent. The Man City game, I watched it a few times, but not as much as I need to. And the reason I wanted to watch it is I just saw a little video of I think it might have been James Gullerblog or who was at the game, and he said that the movement on the pitch was really quite stunning to watch. I thought, you know what, it felt that way, but what did they actually do? And through coaching and watching football, one of the things that scares you when you're watching your team get dismantled is movement, right? When people move. And when people move, I've said this before, when people move like a one drop short, one goes in behind. I call that on the piston. So you have one come short, one goes in behind. They suck you out of a hole, normally David Luiz, and someone runs in behind them, right? So on the piston like that. But when you get something called bi-directional movement, so you have someone coming short, someone going in behind, but then someone coming off the side. Now, coming off the side movement is the hardest movement to track in football for me. And the reason why that is, when you go back and forward, it's quite easy to, you heard me to turn past people on. So when you've lost your marker goes into midfield, you can shout, he's coming to midfield, he's coming to midfield, he's yours, he's yours, he's yours. The striker's mine, I'll take the third man runner. And so you can pass people on. When people run across you, or run across a set of players, that moment to pass people on is not so clear. And that's what Man City do well. If you watch Sterling in particular, he doesn't just run in behind, he comes across, then he goes in behind. And what he's saying is, I'm going to lose you two markers over here. Now I'm free. Now I go forward. And that's what City were doing. And that is so stressful. I can imagine the players were so stressed after that game. And when we were watching it, look, it felt quite dull. But actually, we were quite good. We managed it really well. And we built up quite well. And the result didn't actually demonstrate how good we were. And I was just shame. I wish we'd have had a result, because I think we'd have held on to this game like we are West Ham, if you see what I mean. If we'd have got something from it, we might have looked at it slightly differently. But that game, City and West Ham, are the two games. If you want to educate yourself on football, those are the two to watch.
Yeah, that Manchester City game felt like a chess match to me. It really felt, even though there wasn't a lot of action per se, there was a lot in it. There was a lot more in it than it kind of seemed besides the goals. I think we look at how many shots, how many goals, that kind of thing to validate the action or the energy that was there in the game. But it just felt like two really tactical, astute managers with good teams playing against each other and trying not to give up an inch. It was really interesting when I rewatched it. But I wanted to ask you, Elliot was banging on. So like, this was, especially in the beginning, like there's no players in between the lines. There's no movement, no players in between the lines. But I wanted to ask you, maybe this is just how I kind of think about it, but I think the reason why Saka always moved and could play in between the lines is because Arteta actually trusted him to do those things. Yeah. Do you think that having better technical players or players with better footballing IQ is what Arteta was waiting on to get that movement and kind of let the players be freer? I know you don't really like the structured system talk. It's not really what you like, but can you walk me through why some players are playing in between the lines now, but we weren't really seeing that before?
Yeah, so whenever you look at a game, and everyone has their own emphasis of what they see, right? So, and I wasn't one of those that was massively saying we need a 10. And I'll hold my hands out. I've held it up to Elliot as well and Tim and them, because those guys are saying we need another midfielder in there. And I was saying, well, it's about the types of players you have. Because even with a back three, you can still create that box, too deep, too high, attacking midfielders. But what we were doing, we had too deep and we played Aubameyang high. So we lacked creativity. The only creativity we had was Saka on the other side. And everything was in his hands, right? So what's happened now is we got three people doing that. We got Smith Rowe, Odegaard, and Saka doing that, or Pepe when he plays. So we have three creators and one forward, right? So immediately the balance has changed. So what's happened now is you get ability on the football. You get people who can solve problems technically. So Aubameyang's not a high-touch player. We all know that. We all know what his job is. He's there to sit on the left-hand side and sneak into the box and score. But we need him to build up, right? We've taken away the hybrid midfielder. So actually, mate, you're part of our build-up now in the 4-2-3-1. But that's not him, right? So basically, we had, so we have Lacazette up front. He was dropping in, but then we weren't really having a box presence. So we just didn't have enough creative players. And It sounds like an obvious thing to say. Everyone was saying it, but it really sort of hits you when you see it right. Do you see what I mean? And with not only do you see creativity in the attacking midfield areas, you've got ability on the ball in the defensive midfield areas to create that link. And you start to see the fact that Tierney and Saka are now separated. You've got centrality, as I said earlier. And you start to think, actually, we're not a bad side. We're not a bad side all of a sudden, right? It's the stupid errors that are taking the 6, 7, 8 points away from us that make this whole season look different. So I wasn't one that really overemphasized the number 10. But these guys have reminded me, maybe it's some of my Ozil scars. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to believe one player was that important. You know, I don't want to believe it because it's a team thing. But the introduction of 1/2 creators really has made a difference.
I think so too. And just having players that are willing to do the running, willing to take risks. I think Smith Rowe, and sometimes, it's like, I think it was like the Benfica game where I was like, turn, man, you have space,
Yeah.
and he did that against Spurs, and he was really aggressive. And I think that really showed me what could be for this team when they have confidence and they can play between the lines and they play with a little bit of freedom. It's really interesting. It's the last couple of games have been very interesting to watch, from an Arsenal perspective. You spoke about, the strikers. For you, is this a recruitment outside of, what we already have now? Or, can Aubameyang be effective in this system, not really being able to be a part of buildup? That's been a big criticism for me of him, but I think Lacazette lacks goals. Can Martinelli maybe make this up for us, or are we looking for somebody outside, of what we already have?
So if I'm the club, I'm going to move a couple of people on and buy one player that is different to 2 players that we have. Right. So Martinelli, I think, could almost do what Lacazette does eventually. Not yet, but in time. I think he can lead the press. He can wall pass it. He can lay it off. But what he has got is secondary movement. So if you watch him, he does his work, then he's gone. Just watch him on the screen. He's gone. He's 15 yards away. And what his ability to read the next pass from midfield is superb. So secondary movement of him is great. Lacazette does all the hard yards, turns around. The secondary movement, not so sharp. Do you know what I mean? He gets there in installments. He's not so sharp. And so Aubameyang's movement is great. But what he does, he's quite conservative on the first ball. So he lays it off very easily. He takes the easy layoff. When sometimes he can put his foot on it, turn around and run at people, because they've not gone with him. But I don't think he likes, I don't think he likes being kicked in his ankles. So once he moves off the line, rolls off it, he lets it go and doesn't really commit anybody. So what people are going to do, they're going to let him have it, Jess. They're going to say, go on then. You're only going to lay it back 5 yards. So we'll just stay in our position. And when you turn around, we're still here. We haven't gone with you. With Lacazette, they go with him because they know he can actually turn it, move it, and set people off. So that's why Lacazette gets fouled more. They want to smash him before he lets the ball go. So if I'm Arsenal now, I will be looking at a player like Alexander Isak, right? He's at Real Sociedad. He's almost like a combination of all of them. He's tall like Aubameyang. He's 6'3", 6'4". He's lightning fast. He can carry the ball in wide areas. He can hold it centrally and turn around. He can turn around for himself, or he can combine other people, right? He's good on the press. So he's got that sprinter ability to go and press people off the ball. So of all the strikers I've seen, he's the one I like the most from the next thing to do. Then you've really got Aubameyang, a developing Martinelli, and a player like that. 2 young players ready to take over the reins of the 32-year-old superstar. And that's forward planning for me. Martinelli reminds me of, and the people don't like this, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. He reminds me of Danny Ings, right? So if you now said this, I want you to go and have a look at how Danny Ings runs, his style of play, his ability in the box, his snap shooting. right? He's crouch run style of play, early shot before the goalkeeper's set. And Danny Ings might be going to Man City. He is a very unfortunate player. He had 2 cruciates at Liverpool. Otherwise, he'd still be there. A young Danny Ings, or maybe a little bit like a Son, just in his ability to break and run at distances. But if you watch his style of play and how he moves quickly, how he presses, don't dismiss that name, Danny Ings. I don't want Danny Ings at Arsenal, but look at how he plays in the box, and then you'll see there's a lot of similarities in his movement.
Yeah, as soon as we get off of here, I'm going to go and watch some Danny Ings tapes or something because I haven't heard that before. I mean, it's like the obvious ones are like, I've always said that I thought Martinelli was like a Suarez, Alexis baby. That's what I thought, like just the two of them mixed together.
Yeah.
But hearing Ings now, I'm like, wait, maybe I was a little bit off on that, but I think Martinelli is one of those weird players that has a lot of different qualities. You can't really pin him into one thing because he's so good at a lot of different things. He's awesome.
I wanted to put Danny Ings out there. Sometimes I do this, right? Not because I do it on purpose to get people thinking. I did a thing on the podcast about Harvey Barnes. Remember that one, Harvey Barnes? And I wanted to show people. No one was talking about Harvey Barnes, but I quite liked him. I said we were getting overexcited about Guendouzi and Tobias and Ozil. I said no. Football's changing. Look at Harvey Barnes, just a straight up and down guy that works hard, 2-footed, can sprint, can tackle. That's where football's going. And then suddenly exploded until recent injury. And so he was doing so well. Danny Ings, look at his game. I promise you, he's not far away from where Martinelli is going. And I do agree also, I think, in the near term, I think he's more of a Son. You know what I mean? I think he's somebody who can do that. But those 2 players are the 2 to look at their styles and then say, okay, I can see it now. I can see it.
I think that's, we have to look at Leicester because they always seem like they're a couple steps ahead of everybody else when it comes to recruitment and knowing what player profiles to go for. And it seems like they sell off the old model and bring in the newer model before other people do it. They could easily sell like their Harvey Barnes and James Justin and these types of players and just move on to the next thing. It's not so much about the Chilwells anymore. You need athletes. I think that's why we like Tierney so much, because he's bombastic, run up and down the field, straight line, kind of like kick it past you and run types. It's effective. It may not look so pretty on the eye, but it is really, really effective. And the good players now that people really are interested in play like that. Even like the Lampteys and players like that, just very direct,
They do. I mean, you're talking about all these Premiership players are elite athletes, and then some just stand out to you immediately, don't they? And more importantly, we all watch the game. All of your viewers watch the game, and sometimes just by watching your own players, how do you feel when they're under pressure? How do you feel when someone goes past them? How do you feel when they're left one-on-one exposed? And that normally tells you exactly what we need to add. Do you know what I mean? It really does. Sometimes the result will mask it, or something will happen. They'll put in a good cross. He's a good player. But in your heart of hearts, right? In your heart of hearts, you've got to ask yourself, for a few of our players, are they going to better teams if they leave us? Do you feel comfortable when they're on the pitch in exposed areas? Can they solve problems for us? Are they going to take us to get the 15 to 25 points that we need to be in the Champions League? Are they going to take us there? And then when you ask yourself these questions, the answer is normally really, really clear. Really clear.
You guys, there's about 86 of you watching. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're about 40 minutes in, so we do have some other things we want to get to, and also get some of your questions to Clyde, because there's so many questions coming in. We'll do as many as we possibly can. So what was my next thing? Oh yeah, what else are we missing? We talked about, the Thomas Partey, additional midfielder that we're looking for. Obviously, there's the Odegaard, question on whether, he's going to stay or not. We obviously know that if he goes, we're probably going to have to look at alternatives. But let's start from the back. For you, you talked about right back a lot. I think we should touch on that. So the right back situation, are we looking for Cancelo type for you? Is it a Lamptey type of player? What do you think for the right back?
See, if you look at whatever system we're playing, we tend to be playing in a 2-3-5 build up, right? That's what we tend to be doing. So that right back needs to be multifunctional, right? It can't just be a sprinter up and down the sideline that wants to receive the ball in straight lines or off all passes, quite one dimensional. But that one dimension used to be very, very good and can be good on a certain day. But I think we need a multi-dimensional football that can play inverted on the inside, part of the three, right? Sometimes even roll around into a back three, you know, if we need that. So rather than a 2-3-5, it's a 3-2-5, right? So and somebody also that can underlap his winger. But if you have to go on the outside, you go on the outside because we're rolling down that side. So I look at somebody that's a little bit more. Well, actually, one of the best right back performances was the last one we saw, right? So Callum Chambers gets that role perfectly, right? So from understanding the role in this current way we're playing in a 4-2-3-1, he can be solid on the right hand side. He can invert. He's played in midfield, so he's happy in central areas. That little flick pass around the corner, you don't do that unless you're happy in central areas. Right?
He called it too. He pointed and called it. He knew he was doing that.
He called it. And when he's on the outside, because he's not a super athlete, he focuses on timing and he focuses on arrival. And arrival's key because once you arrive in space. And playing with Odegaard, basically, you ain't got to do much. You just got to be there. And it arrives, it stops, it spins, and the ball just looks at you and smiles and said, "Cross me." Do you see what I mean? And that's what he did. And so if you look at Callum Chambers and say to yourself, okay, that's the type we need. Just need somebody a little bit quicker, maybe a little bit more athletic. And there's a player that's popped up recently that didn't know beforehand. So I'm like everybody else. I watch my YouTubes and I look at the videos that come out and all the rumors. And there's a player at Real Betis called Emerson Royale. I look at him and I think, there you go. That's it. Combination of a speedy Bellerin, happy in wide areas, can invert, but when he looks very solid on the tackle. He tackles like a Wan-Bissaka going backwards. So he's not going to show any weakness going that way. But he's happy on the ball. He's skillful on the ball. He's got a bit of rawness about him. He's the right size, you know. And I look at him and think, that's a good signing. Somebody like that. And I haven't seen a live game yet. I've just watched a lot of little videos. Haven't seen a live game. But that player, to me, is exactly what I've been talking about for probably about a year and a half in my mind without knowing who he is. And the ones that I've seen, probably the guy at Ajax, Mazwazi or something like that. I never get his name right. He looks quite neat. Someone just, I think you just put it out there. It's like Mazwari. He looks quite neat. I worry about his physicality. I think he's an absolute technical player. Really technical, more technical than Emerson Royale, but I'm not sure with physicality. And I always worry about the Dutch league, how much they would, transfer into the Premiership. And obviously the guy at RB Leipzig I quite like, but I think he's more of a centre back. He'll develop in Mukalele. I think he's more. I think he'll end up being a right centre back. He's played right centre back in their back three, and I think he's not. He's quite well known, so he won't be cheap, right? So we got to move away from that one.
I agree. I was looking at. I've always talked about Denzel Dumfries, but like you said, the Dutch league. Not sure if he could. Hit his skill levels would transfer over to the Premier League, but Emerson does look like a good option. He's Brazilian, so I don't know if that would make a difference in terms of having Edu, and he's kind of on the outs at Barcelona. He's on loan at Real Betis, so that might be something that we could look at, and I do think he has kind of like what AK Gunner says, that athletic right back Walker type, right back, So that's definitely, that's the upgrade, isn't it?
It is. And also, I'm not quite sure of this yet, but it's going to be much harder to bring over young European players now. So it's going to be easier because of the rules, because post-Brexit, to bring over South Americans, and we are quite well positioned in that regard, right? So if we're not, then what are they doing there, right? So the Emerson Royale one, sometimes it just a rumor pops out and from a player I've not heard about beforehand, and then it feels right, it fits, So I'll be quite happy with that signing if it happened.
What do you think about the right center back, position? Have you done any research or watch Saliba out on loan? He's my choice. I just keep thinking, bring him back. Just bring him back, give him a chance. Let's see. If you like the way David Luiz plays, playing out of the back, dribbling into the midfield, those are things that Saliba does. I know he doesn't have the big, switch Hollywood pass, but those are things that he might be able to develop, in the future. Yeah. Is he somebody you'd like to see get a chance? Have you looked at Mavropanos? Or again, is this something we have to recruit outside of what we already have at Arsenal?
See, so I've done my Saliba research. Of course I have, right? So yeah, I totally agree with you. So you have in your central defensive pair, you should have a low block defender and a possession central defender. And I think Saliba is going to be that possession guy. And he does like to drive out of his hole. We can all see that. I do think switching the play is going to be really important. And I'll come on to that a little bit. I think he's tried it. It's a little bit lumpy. It's a bit floaty. He doesn't drive the ball. He doesn't undercut the ball. So he gets it forward, but it doesn't look very pretty on the eye. But defensively, he's tremendous in one-on-ones. It just comes natural to him. Duels, how to use his body weight, position himself. He barely makes a foul, doesn't he? I mean, it's incredible. You see him go to one-on-one, you just don't worry about him. I think he's more of a defender in a good side. So I don't think he's a low block defender. He's somebody who needs to be on the halfway line. And good sides, where do we want our defenders? We want them on the halfway line. Rob Holding is a low block defender. On the halfway line, I get a little bit edgy about him, although that's improved. And so I think Saliba is where we're going in this team. So what's going to happen, Jess? And this is something you ask us. I'm giving you an exclusive now, right? So I'm doing a bit of work on this, I'm doing some research for squad building. And what's going to happen with Arsenal right now? Like we said earlier about our build-up play, people stood off us and said try to beat the low block, and we had to overcome it. We just overcome it. What's going to happen next? I'll tell you what's going to happen next. Everyone is going to be watching our wide diamonds, wide triangles, build-up play. And they are going to press us in wide areas a lot. And so the next thing you need to be looking for are players that can switch the play. Right? That's the key. So the right back has got to be able to switch the play. The left back has got to be able to switch the play. Because when we get people over in crowd scenes trying to press us, we need dexterity to get out and switch out the other side. And once you switch out the other side, it's an isolation game. And then we can go and do our thing from there. So the ability for not just short pattern play that we're seeing right now and quite enjoying with Odegaard, rat-a-tat, moving the ball around. Once we get pinned, switch. We've got to get out and switch. So people can switch is the next thing. So when I'm looking at centre mids, when I'm looking at centre backs, I'm looking at their long passing, because people are not going to sit there and watch us look good. They're going to create new problems for us, right? And so you've always got to be thinking ahead of how the team's going to evolve. And so that's the key thing. So right centre back, I love Saliba. I really like him. We've got Holding on a contract, so we've given Saliba development time. He's got to come back. We've got to trust him. He's 20 now, isn't he? Just turned 20 the other day. He's 20 with a body of a 28-year-old. So it's not an issue for him physically. He's unbelievable. I don't know what his birth certificate's saying, but that's not right. He's unbelievable. So I do think, let's see him. I think he's going to give us an authority we've lacked for quite a long time. But let's find out, shall we? We spent the money. I don't think it's we're quite impatient as fans, but maybe, when you saw the headlines for Ibrahim Konate going to Liverpool yesterday, potentially, he's 21, right? He is on the bench for France under 21s at the moment. He's not even in the team. So he's on the bench. I love that player. I'd have him in my team right now. But he's just as inexperienced in some ways he's more experienced, than Saliba. And that should maybe tell us to be more patient with Saliba. He's just turned 20. He hasn't played for France under 21s yet. Do you see what I mean? He's France under 19s. He's still developing. And I think that price tag made us think we want him now, because 27 million is quite a lot of money. But Konate is going to go for 40, 45. And no one's ever going to say Liverpool got a great signing. Do you see what I mean? Maybe in a year or so's time, we're going to think 27 million for this guy. Wow. It could be the steal of the century, but we're just going to have to wait. And none of us are sure yet. Is he going to come back or is he going to go? But I hope he comes back and stays and plays.
I do too. Like, I just keep thinking, I want to at least see it before, he doesn't play. I have a hard time believing that Arteta would just let him go without seeing him or giving him another chance. I mean, he's been out on loan. Let's see what happens. But just really quick, are you giving David Luiz an extension or no? Or you think we're good with holding? And how do you feel about the possible extension for Luiz?
It depends, really. I'm not sure. At some point, you've got to take the training wheels off. I don't like, the Willian Luiz thing. I think it screams that we're not quite confident in who we are. Just go. Trust your talent. Trust who you are. Make sure you've got the right type of people there. I think Luiz has surprised me, and every time I start to fall in love with him, he upsets me. Do you know what I mean? And every time I believe in him, he does something that makes me think you're asleep. And funny enough, the West Ham game, you watch the start of that game, he was going into one of those sleepy games, and I'm thinking, oh no, I was just starting to rate you. What, you don't do this to me, don't do this to me. And basically, if you watch it again, he literally wakes up and ends that game superb. Do you know what I mean? So normally when David Luiz goes into that sleepy room, he doesn't come out. Well, he does come out. He comes out of a red card and he gets a early shower and he goes home, right? That's what normally happens. So that's the only bit that says to me, I'm not sure. I think Pablo Mari is somebody that could take that leadership role. 27, 28, I think he seems to be a calm individual with leadership. He won't play every week because Gabriel's the man, right? So yeah, I'm happy to go with those 4, but we won't. We'll keep Luiz. But if we do keep Luiz, how about player coach? Right? How about play? You're laughing at all the comments, aren't you? How about player coach? I can't see him, right? So how about player coach? I think that's not a bad idea, and that might show a different level of commitment. And I think he's, for everything you hear, people seem to really like him. So of all the Chelsea boys coming across to get their money, he's the one that's probably done the best. Yeah,
I mean, I think if we were in a different position, I would say no, just get rid. But we're not. And we may need a little bit of that leadership or whatever. I don't love his brand of leadership all the time and the experience, that kind of thing, but he seems important and I'm not behind the scenes. So I trust Arteta enough to feel like if he's thinking this person is important, then it is what it is,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If Saliba comes back and they do a 5 in there and Luiz knows his role to allow that kid to be the player he needs to be, and then I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. I think we're in a much better place with, getting rid of the Mustafis, etc. We're getting rid of those players, Socrates. The players we have here at the moment are much better, much better.
Yeah, for sure. So if Odegaard doesn't stay, is it Odegaard or bust? Like, what happens, if he doesn't stay? Have you seen anybody else that we should be looking at? There's, rumors of Fekir, but part of me feels like that's almost like Arsenal doesn't want to look like Odegaard is their one and only option. You don't really want to be in that position either.
Yeah.
They're not similar to me at all. When I've watched Fekir, there's no real similarities to me except for they play maybe in similar positions. One is 28, the other one is 22. I'm not really sure what the thought process is there, but for you've done a lot of scouting, you've looked around, you watch a lot of football. If Odegaard was not to come to the Emirates full-time permanently, are there any other options for you that would be suitable to maybe do the same thing?
See, I like to look at the attacking mids as almost like a group of players that you can move around. And I'll just look at Man City basically and look at what they do. They have a group. They've got their tricky winger in Mahrez. Well, we've got one of those in Pepe, right? So they've got their Sterling. Well, we've got Saka. We've got players that are starting to fit that mold. And Odegaard, I do like him a lot. I think he fits us. It's obvious. It's not like a massive, wonderful bit of analysis there, right? We can all see he fits his team, right? And by how he plays, and how we play with him, he fits his team. I do like the one player. If we do lose, I'd like to see Willian move on, not because he's been that bad, although he has been quite bad, and not because of the general sort of lack of trust about his motivations for being here. I don't think he brings enough positivity to the group, in my opinion. Just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right. I'd like to see him move on. And the player I like is Emi Buendia. I really like him. I think he's quick. He's 2-footed. He scores. He can play on the right and the left and centre. So you're bringing in a group of players. And the thing about him is he's not a risk from outside the country. He's played in the league. Don't go and buy a Fekir who we're not sure how he's going to settle. He failed his medical at Liverpool. There's obviously injury issues there. He got his move. He didn't go to a top club. And I don't think he's ripping it up. I haven't seen him recently, and the reason I'm not seeing him recently because no one's flashed one of those lovely comps out there because he's not playing well, right? So let's see. I just don't think he's doing enough. It would be a bad move for me. I look at Julian Brandt. I've seen him play. I don't think he's intense enough. I think he's quite creative. I don't think he's intense enough. And if you're gonna rotate with a Smith Rowe and a Martinelli and a Saka, make sure they're good. Make sure they're very good. Don't have any risk. Don't block anybody like we did with Pepe this year. We blocked him with Willian, and Willian wasn't good enough to block Pepe. He wasn't good enough. If Pepe's going to be sat down, make sure it's because Saka's so good he can't not play. Do you see what I mean? Make sure it's because of that. Don't do it because of somebody who you're trying to appease because you paid a big contract for him, etc. So Buendia would be my choice to come into that group because I think, again, he's fungible. He plays the same way as we do stylistically, and he can score and create and work hard. So that's my choice.
I love it. I love it. You guys, there's about 100 of you watching right now. Make sure that you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Get your questions in. We're going to do as many as we can. And I'm the host, so I'm going to take host privileges and come with my question first. You guys don't hate me for cutting the line, but, I just wanted to ask, for you, what has been the most impressive aspect of Arteta as a coach so far for you? Coach to coach kind of thing. Like, what has impressed you the most about him so far?
Hey, so for myself, I do a little bit of coaching, but actually, I'm not saying I coach coaches, but I analyze games for the coaches, and I advise. I'm more like a director of football, really. So my days of coaching they're gone. I enjoy the analyzing side of things and improving players individually and one-on-one stuff. So in my not previous life, in my work life, I've always been in a corporate environment. Working in like investment banking, US banks, and I say some of the biggest ones you can possibly think of. And so I've always been involved in leadership. And when I saw Arteta come into our club, when his very first interview, I thought, oh wow, we've got somebody that understands leadership here, understands change, understands what to do. And I've been taken aback by that immediately because the club needed somebody with that individual caliber to move us forward. We were so dependent on one person's caliber in Arsene Wenger, and I just felt we tried to do the broader model, and it was almost too broad with the wrong individuals in it, and they all left. We had massive instability, so we've done almost like a halfway house. We have got a structure, but it's more concentrated into 3 people rather than just one person with Wenger, right? So there's a little bit of a layer there, and there's going to be a developing layer with a new contracts guy coming in. So Arteta's come in, and immediately he understands the change cycle. He understands what you need to do. So the first thing you need to do when you come into an organization You need to sell the dream, right? You need to get people on board. You need to say, this is what I'm going to do for you, right? And you heard him say the words, believe in me. So you have to sell the dream. That's the first thing you do. The next thing you do, you have to look to see who's committed, who's on board with the dream, who's on board with the project, right? And so that commitment phase was probably what happened last summer. And that's when he worked out, you lot are not on board with me. He couldn't move them in the summer because the COVID was too short and the market wasn't there. And then he moved them on in January. Funny enough, how things have improved since those people are not in the squad anymore, right? Since the ones that weren't committed, they're out on loan or they're not here, right? So that tells you what he was doing there. While he's doing that, he's trying to fix us. The key issue was one of the players whose skill set suits how he needed to play was one of those people that wasn't on board with the program. So he suffered. His game suffered. Other players suffered. And he has to carry that. He has to wear that. He has to wear that as a club. We didn't move people on appropriately. We didn't move Saliba on at the right time. We lost some form of our skipper due to issues, personal issues, for example. A few things went wrong with Xhaka and Louise. And he had to wear all of that, knowing he had a big January coming, knowing what he wanted to do. So now he's worked out his commitment. He's now trying to balance his squad. He's trying to not just, these are the people that I like. These are people that are with me. Now I need to get them into some sort of balance. And I think Odegaard was part of that, getting a creative balance to the squad. Smith Rowe coming in, maybe his injury at the start of the year was bigger than we realised. A 3-month shoulder injury. I didn't think it was a big deal. I didn't think he was going to play. As soon as he's fit, he played. Look what we've got, right? So, and he quotes that, right? So the balance of the squad is now there. It's now developing, shall we say. And then the next phase, you heard him say it, the next phase is adding those specifics. Adding those specifics. Okay, we need to turn over now. We can't have people walk out the door for free. We've got to do some upgrades. What do the upgrades look like? So for me, he understands the change cycle, understands how to grow something. On the pitch, people can critique him on the pitch, and I recognize that not everyone looks at football like I do. Not everyone's as patient as me. They say, Clive, we lost to Villa twice and Burnley. We didn't beat Burnley. We lost to Wolves twice. And they're absolutely right. You know, they broke my heart, those games. But you have to look beyond that and say, are we progressing in the right direction? For the first time in a long time, I think we are. And I trust them. I think they understand the problem statement. I do think they understand the problems that we have. Understanding the problem statement is really, really key. If you don't understand who you are and where you are and how far you've fallen, how can you get back to somewhere? If you're pretending that we're the Arsenal Football Club, we've won the Premier League this many times, we've won the FA Cup, if you're pretending, you're not really looking at what's actually happening, because we're finishing 30-odd points behind the league leaders at the moment. That's what's happening. We've lost 11 games this season. That's what's happening. You know, and we haven't qualified for the Champions League for 4 years. That's what's really happening, right? So forget the stadium, forget the badge. This is where we are right now. And how are we going to get back until we admit we have a problem? And I think he gets it. I really think he gets it. I wasn't one that wanted him after when Wenger left. I thought he was too soon. My podcast colleagues, they wanted him straight away. I was one to say, no, I think it's wrong. I think it's too soon. Maybe if he'd have come straight away, we'd be further along now. Who knows? They could be absolutely right. But he's here now at a really dark period in our history, and I think we're starting to see some light. He needs a break now. He needs a break, but he also needs some financial support. If we're going to shortcut this, he needs some support. And I haven't seen the comments yet, but I can always hear your listeners saying, KFC not going to give you no money, Clive. Give you no money. But I wouldn't give money to a failing organization. If I was an investor, I would only give money to something that was working well, that had got rid of the rubbish. Do you see what I mean? Then I'm going to give money to an optimal organization that's moving and structured in the way I like it. Then I'm going to invest, not when we're just throwing money over the fence to our mates, you know? So I am a huge fan because I understand what he's doing as a manager, as a coach, and a leader. From a coaching perspective, he's shown me things on the pitch I've never seen. You could say you're slow to get the attacking side of things going. I know Elliot says that to me all the time. He's too slow, too slow, too slow. I'll get him soon. Don't you worry. I'll get him soon. But and that's fine. Some people are focused on results, and that's absolutely fine. And I can't argue that. But again, I tend to look at the horizon, where we're going and how we're getting there, and I like what we're seeing.
Yeah, I do too. I really think that this is the first time that we've seen the club try to attack the true issues with with kind of like what we're going through instead of just papering over the cracks. We're seeing like an untangling of a knot per se
Yeah,
and try to get the string completely straight without just kind of like cutting corners. So I view that as progress. You have to diagnose the problem before you start. You actually have to acknowledge that the problem is there first. So we're doing those things, and sometimes you get worse before you get better. I think we're going to get better. So I like what I'm seeing. I like to see people acknowledge that things are not right, and
yeah,
not pretending. Under Raul, we were pretending. We
yeah.
really were. But they want to ask, well, Chico Gunnar wants to ask, what does the future hold for Reese Nelson? They're also asking about future players from the academy. So if you just want to roll on after that and talk about, the players that you've seen in the academy that you're excited about, that would be awesome. There's like 5 questions about that.
Yeah. So, again, a bit of disclosure. My son was an academy footballer, and I spent 4 years, probably in academy, probably 5 days a week. And that's when my sort of love for real football. I mean, football is a game that we all watch and know, but actually, it's almost like you have to work out at some point that Father Christmas is not real. And when you realize how structured it actually is, and what coaches do to allow players to play well, the patterns they introduce, and actually what they do when you're developing player is they give you a game plan and a way of playing that gives you comfort on the pitch, because football is a very stressful game for young men, and you've got to give them comfort. You've got to give them roles. You've got to give them know what they're doing, and give them exits to get out of stressful situations. And you rely on their ability also, obviously, to deliver. And so, going back, the reason why I want to go that way is because I think Reece Nelson struggles to transfer his talent into the first team adult environment. I think it's not a talent thing. I think it's a transference thing. Transferring your ability from training to match day, transferring your ability amongst people your own age into an environment where there's a bloke with a beard that's going to kick your head off. Do you know what I mean? And that's the difference. That is where he's struggling at the moment. This is where loans really help on people's development. The life cycle of every player is different. You see a Saka come in, and from day one, you're thinking, oh my goodness, he's good. Okay, he's good. Not only is he good, he's leading our team creatively. I mean, he's just gone, and that's happened. I read somewhere he's the most valuable player in the squad financially the other day. So
Not shocking at all.
yeah, and that just has come out of nowhere. That shows you the importance of youth development, right? And you need 10 good games, and that's what can happen. He's done it for longer, obviously, but he's only going to get better if we look after him. So Nelson, I think, struggling with the transference of his ability onto the first team pitch. I don't think it's an ability thing. I think it's more he probably needs to leave the mothership and go and play somewhere and rediscover himself. And I think positionally discover himself as well. I think he can do a lot of things, and I'm not sure we've quite found who he is yet, so that's a shame because he should have gone alone this year and that should be being discovered. The next one coming out of the academy, right? So, again, most people do I'll give you 2 names, right? And one we're not sure about was Miguel Aziz, 19, centre mid, behind the ball, holding mid, true 6, gonna be a top player, already 6 foot, got the physicality, got the brain, only going one direction, and that is into our first team squad next year. Mark my words. I've never been so sure about something in a long time. There's one other player I think could be a very good player, but I'm not sure we're going to keep. And I have got some contacts within the youth structure of a parent there who's there, and I know it's very 50-50, and that's Keto Taylor Hart.
No, don't say that.
Yep.
He's so good.
Yep. So he is, for me, obviously everyone knows about Balogun, and I'm not sure what to believe there. So I don't want to talk about it because I'm just not sure what to believe. But Keto Taylor Hart, for me, when I watch him, I think he could be the next attacking one. I really do. I think he's got the speed, the dexterity, the ability. He's light. He's at the right body shape for his age. He's got the right audacity in front of a goal. He could be a very, very special player. And I know Arsenal are trying very hard to get him. I heard a little while ago that, I think he's going to sign. It's just a casual comment. And then I heard it's 50-50. He might end up going to Germany. And so I don't know what to believe. I'm not saying I know something. I just know it's on the edge. I know Arsenal are trying their absolute best. Lots of young players are being scouted in Germany, obviously, because they know we have so much talent in this country and not enough pathways. And what they're going to do, they're going to buy these players from us for nothing and sell them back to us for 30, 40 million. And we're going to do it because we need homegrown players. It's putting a lot of pressure on academies. And what you'll see a lot more of is you'll see people moving from academy to academy, right? Because you can't just pop over to Europe and get Cesc Fabregas anymore. So what you'll do, you'll be looking at other academies and seeing who's not on the fast track and stealing them, right? That's what's going to happen. So our ability to scout in country is going to be huge, really huge. And so we have to look at our whole model at Hale End. We have to look at our facilities. We have to look at everything to make sure we can attract these guys to come to our club. And again, I come back to what I said earlier. Don't think, well, we're an Arsenal club. No, it's not enough. Go and look at Leicester's training ground. Have you looked at it? You see it online?
After
100 million.
you talked to us about, well, you've said it before that they're gearing up for the next step. Leicester is really one of those types of clubs that you have to look at because they're not just recruiting well, they're trying to become the next big club in England. You know, they've replaced us as the team in and around that top four. So we need to be watching them.
We gotta watch them. So on the pitch at the moment, they're beating us. Although we saw the other day, we're not far behind, and we're just a bit stupid, right? So I don't think there's a gap. We are, aren't we? We're a bit dumb. We are a bit dumb. That's all this is. We are dumb. The goals we can see, they're dumb. They're not football goals. They're goals that are born out of stupidity, right? So we're just, that's where we are. So we're not as far behind them as what the table says. But you're absolutely right. £100 million training ground. They're looking to increase the stadium to 55,000. They're doing the right things. They're putting a club together they can sell to young talent. And that's what we used to do. And we need to start doing better. And so Kilo Taylor Hart, and watch that boy, and I hope it works out for him at Arsenal. Because if it does, we got something there. We really have.
Yeah, I hope so too. There's 108 of you guys watching this video. Like the video and subscribe to the channel for more good content. Remember, you guys, Elliot will be on tomorrow. I don't think it'll be as, will we say, tactically, astute conversation. Probably be more jokey, laughy, but still good content. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. All right. Aslan asks, Clive, I like your mini library backdrop. Off topic. What are 3 books you'd recommend for us to read? You have a couple for us?
I get asked this a lot, and I'm thinking to myself, I've got a few books there, as you can see. Do you know what I like? And there's a very simple magazine book out at the moment. It's called Scouted Football, right? Mm-hmm. So look it on Twitter. It's called Scouted Football. I know one of the guys that writes there, and they send that along to me. And I tell you now, if you like, discovering players and reading about them in a really professional way, I recommend that a lot. It's just a wonderful magazine. I tend to read things about leadership and coaching. So coaches I read about may not always be football coaches. So obviously I read about NBA coaches, I read about rugby coaches, a coach called Eddie Jones, who I would read about. Anything else with Man City, you can get it online today. So you haven't got to go far to find that sort of things. And I tend to read short form. I have got Pep Guardiola books, etc., and I read about them a little bit. But I will tend to look at, if I am going to read something, I will tend to go back to Holland, and I'd read about Rinus Michels, right? So he was the guy that Cruyff learned from. And it was way before your time, Jess. You were like, you're thinking, who's he talking about? So, but Rinus Michels, again, I do like the Dutch way of playing. I think it was, when I was growing up, it was like, wow, what's this? Probably like Man City, what they're doing today is a similar impact. So, Rinus Michels, have a look at that. But I honestly believe, and I say this to everybody, listen, read short form, but don't lose yourself, right? So hold on to your own opinion and develop it. Sometimes you can read. I go on coaching courses, you can read, and I don't go on too many because I don't want to lose my instinct for it. Do you mean? Develop your instinct. Another thing I'd say to people is, I'm involved in non-league football, but go and watch football, anything. Go and watch park football. Go and watch anything you can right next to the ground and learn about the stresses and strains, what a coach says, how players move. The closer you get to it, the more you can bring it forward into your football analysis. And I'd recommend that. I go and watch anything, non-league. I go and watch anything, youth games, anything, and I can always learn something or spot something, or something clicks in my mind. So that's what I would definitely recommend.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know the name that you put out there, but when I go back and listen to it, I'll write it down and make sure I take a look at it. I've been trying to get more into like the tactical side of the game and learning more about coaches and things like that. So yeah, mostly I listen to you for that, but I guess I could get some other people in there. But let's end it on this. I think this is an interesting question. Obviously, I'm American, so I'm invested in this a little bit. But Pramod asks, Clive, the analyst and director of football, should KSE invest in their U.S. soccer franchise and even open up an academy with being like a pathway to Arsenal, considering Brexit? I think I'd like to almost open this up a little bit. Like, have you looked at some of the U.S. talent? Do you think that that's a market that we should be looking into? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, so funny enough, I asked the question online to some people and they started to send me some US talents, and so I haven't got to research them yet, but I'm there. Do you see what I mean? I'm looking everywhere but Europe, basically, because I know it's going to be harder. And so when people judge KSE, I've got a very UK centric view. I don't know much about what he's done at the Denver Nuggets, although I do know them and watch them. And so I don't know what he's done at Colorado. I don't know what he's done at his other franchises. But I know a little bit about the Rams, but obviously everyone knows what he's doing with that ground, etc. And so what I do see with him is I think we're not ambitious enough. I don't think we show ambition. And the simple things I look for are, do we have links with other clubs around Europe? How far are we pushing our brand globally? Our commercial numbers are not rising. Are we working hard enough in those places? Do we have those pathway clubs, as the person who asked the question? We should do, shouldn't we? We should have this. We've got this conglomerate guy. We've got this guy that's done this before. What are we doing with our infrastructure? Why haven't we got a stadium for our academy and for our ladies to play football at? Why are we going to Boreham Wood to pay them £500,000 a year to rent their ground or whatever it is and do their pitch so it lasts? Why are we doing that? Why can't we show the ambition to have that on site? That's perfectly fine, Boreham Wood. Perfectly fine. I've been there to watch youth games. It's lovely, right? It's a conference team that we share ground with. Why can't we have that internalized in our own training ground? Show ambition that really says you're going in the right direction. I know it costs, but it's your asset. Build the asset, show ambition, make sure we have more links to more clubs, to have more pathways. I don't think we're showing enough ambition. So you might say, well, actually, we've got to do a bit of work at home. We all know you need to lose about 10 players in the summer and bring in about 6 or 7. We haven't got time to show that ambition. We're not stable enough yet. That maybe is the next phase of the change cycle we spoke about earlier. How are we going to grow this brand again? And people may laugh at me. I've always said this. We keep looking around and not realizing we're just not quite as big as we used to be. However, I do feel we're almost like the biggest sleeping giant out there, right? So we need to wake up. We need to wake up, and I think that's starting to happen, but we're not ambitious enough for me. We're not ambitious enough. There's not enough streams of work going on. I understand what Arteta is doing, but it should be other people driving the other side parts of the organization and the business per se. And I don't see enough of that at the moment, but they're still building that executive structure. There's a new guy coming in from the Premier League very shortly. Let's see how this develops, but I'm a little bit disappointed in the lack of ambition as a whole since he's come in. But now it's his show for the last couple of years. Let's see what he does from here on in. He's got about another year or two in my mind before I start to lose my mind.
Well, I mean, I think those things take time, and there needs to be emphasis on it. And hopefully those are things, in the background that they're thinking about, because even like, I hate to bring them up because obviously they're in a completely different position than us, but Man City has connections to the MLS, and that's how they've been able to recruit, their backup goalkeeper, is Zach Steffens, and then even Harrison. He used to play in the US. I think he's on loan at Leeds from Man City, so other teams are looking at ways to connect the dots, and bring in different types of talent, to get ahead of the curve. And even if it's not American talent, I would hope that ADU has some sort of connections in South America that we could take advantage of, moving forward, but those are all things that we'll see whether or not they come to fruition over time, because they don't happen like that. And we, like you said, we've been sleeping for a long while, but all right, you guys, we're going to end it there. There's 113 of you guys watching right now, and I hope that you guys have liked the video and subscribed. If you haven't, go ahead and do that on your way out. We do look at the comment section, after the show. So if you didn't get your comments out there, I will look at them and I will answer them there. Clive, can you let everybody know what you're going to be doing for the rest of the week? Anything special, where they can find you on the internet?
Yeah, well, I generally just do. Well, I've done a few shows lately. Actually, I've been out there a little bit because people have asked me, and I don't like to say no. I like to space it out a little bit, So yeah, but mostly it's Arsenal Vision for me. You know how it goes. I do that. That's where I'm able to do my thing. I think the guys are great. Elliot's great. Tim's great. Paul's great. You know them, and I'm very lucky to have that platform, I must admit, and we've grown it together, and it's doing really well, for honest. I'm sure Jess anyway. So that's where I'm going to be. And you can find me online at Clive PAFC, and I tend to talk to everyone as long as they're nice, right? So you can come at me, ask me anything you like, and I'll promise I'll try my best to come back.
For sure. You guys, you heard it there. Clive is on the Arsenal Vision podcast, and obviously that's an awesome platform. Elliot will be on tomorrow at 7 p.m. UK time. Will not be as tactical, probably won't be as in-depth, probably a lot of giggles, a lot of reactionary takes and things like that, but should still be a good time. So make sure that you guys subscribe for that. And all of you that have been asking about US content and, if I'm going to be doing scouting videos and weaving it into the Arsenal content in some way. Me and Sophie are going to be getting together to do something for US scouting and how Arsenal can integrate that in. So be on the lookout for that. And you guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks to everybody for being here, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.